Welcome to the F&B podcast. I'm Sahith.
And I'm Arya.
In this episode, we will be breaking down the common argument, the super common argument, that a lot of teachers address to kids in examples of writing an argumentative essay or paragraph. And that topic is school uniforms. Should school uniforms, are they a good thing? So today we'll be breaking that down from a perspective of, yes, we should wear school uniforms. So we're going to be looking at the website procon.org, run by Britannica, and we'll be agreeing with the pros and trying to break down the cons. So they list, let me just check, 13 cons and 13 pros. So essentially we'll be breaking down 13 cons and agreeing with 13 pros. So Arya is going to start us off with pro number one.
So pro number one is that school uniforms deter crime and increase student safety. So essentially what it's saying is that it just removes all inequality and biases between students. A study shown in Long Beach, California, after mandatory uniform requirements, fighting went down, bullying went down, robbery went down, assault went down, vandalism went down, drug use went down. I think really a main reason for this drop in crime and all this is because everyone's wearing. So obviously when we think of biases and prejudices we hold against people, a big factor in that is what people wear. So we tend to judge people based on what they wear. So if everyone's wearing the same thing, there's no way to judge them, because if we judge them, we're judging ourselves. So Sahi will go and break down con number one now.
So con number one is, it says that school uniforms restrict students' freedom of expression. So as many people know, freedom, according to the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, it guarantees that all individuals have the right to express themselves freely. I strongly agree with this, first of all. However, I don't see how school uniforms specifically restrict a student's freedom of expression. So you can still express yourself even if you're not wearing, if you're still wearing a uniform. You still have a voice and you can still talk about, you can still express your feelings through speech. You don't necessarily need uniform to express yourself. I can understand if they were saying you cannot talk about certain things. That, of course, is a restriction of your freedom of expression. But simply wearing something is not a violation. I believe it's not a violation of freedom of expression, or at least it doesn't limit it in some kind of radical way, which is not going to allow students to express their opinions. So the next pro, which I will be breaking down, is school uniforms keep students focused on their education, not their clothes. This one pretty much speaks for itself. Let's take a hypothetical example. You have a student who wears something, and you have another student who, let's call him the bully, and he starts making fun of this this student. So this student is going to feel like he has to change his appearance, his looks. So every day when he goes home, he's not going to be focusing on his studies or his academics or even athletics for that matter. Instead, he's going to focus on, what should I wear tomorrow so I don't get bullied today. So that one basically speaks for itself. And yeah, next con will be broken down by Arya.
So con number two is that school uniforms promote conformity over individuality. We're seeing a repetitive theme with the cons for now, but as Sahith kind of touched on, if your clothes are your personality, then that's really sad. You need a better personality than, if I'm being honest, because you have more to you than just what you wear. So yeah, and then also conformity isn't always a bad thing. When there's conformity, there's less segregation, and Sorry. And obviously, if there's less segregation, then as we said, students can like focus on actually doing what they're supposed to be doing in school instead of trying to fit in. If there's forced fitting in, then there's no need to try and fit in. Some people may say though that maybe school like uniforms are specifically gendered, where if let's say I'm a trans person and I was born a girl, I have to wear a skirt. Like, I mean, it's kind of getting into a whole nother topic, but you just wear what you were like the way you were born. Just wear what you have to. Just make it easy on the school, like, and it might even make it easier on you because let's say I'm a trans person and I decide to wear like a skirt and then and then a t-shirt and like a dog chain around my neck, I'm gonna get bullied. Whereas if I just wear a skirt and like a girl's uniform, I'm not gonna get bullied.
I don't know about the bullying part of it, but even if you are a trans person, let's say you're born biologically a girl and you are a trans girl, meaning you are a trans boy rather, and you identify as a boy, then you can still wear the boy's uniform. I mean, there's nothing really wrong with that. That's just a personal choice. I don't think that has anything to do with individual. Like, I don't know how that restricts individuality. If you identify as a male and you're a female, but you can still dress as a male in the male uniform.
So now we'll be breaking down pro number 3, which is that school uniforms create a level playing field among students, reducing peer pressure and bullying. Well, we've already sort of addressed the bullying part, but I agree with the peer pressure part. It will be greatly reduced because, again, if there's conformity will lead to better academic results. If there's better academic results, that means students are prioritizing important things such as studying, and if they're prioritizing studying, then they won't be prioritizing like going out and wasting time and messing around. And so, I mean, I see it at my school every day. We don't wear uniforms. Sahi school does wear uniforms. You can just see the quality difference between the average kid at our school and his school. The average guy at my school is just a total druggie. At Sahit, it's a decent student. So I think uniforms plays a big role in just keeping kids in line.
All right, so the next con is school uniforms do not stop bullying and may increase violent attacks. So it says here that Tony Volk, I'm sorry if I butchered the name, is a PhD, associate professor at Brock University. I do not know where that is. He says, overall, there is no evidence in bullying literature that supports a reduction in violence due to school uniforms. First of all, okay, school uniform may not reduce violence, but it sure doesn't increase violence. So I think it's safe to say that with school not having uniforms, there is more bullying. I think we can all agree on that. And if school uniforms do not reduce the bullying, specifically on the uniform part, I think they do. But in general, if they do not reduce the bullying, I don't see how that works towards your point. It also says a Texas Southern University study found that school discipline incidents rose about 12% after the introduction of uniform. According to Miami-Dade Country Public School, fights in the middle school nearly doubled within 1 year. Okay, so there's two things wrong with that piece of evidence. One, incidents rose because as you can't judge it as soon as you introduce them. Of course, kids are not going to be happy. You have to do it over a long period of time to do the analysis. And the second piece is fight in middle school nearly doubled within 1 year of introducing uniforms. Okay. The second problem with that is, how do you know it's the uniforms exactly? There may be other factors of it. So that's another problem. So pro number 4, wearing uniforms enhances school pride, unity, and community spirit. So, this kind of speaks for itself. Yes, you need I don't know about school pride. I mean, obviously it does, but I don't know how much of a good thing that is, but that's another topic. Unity, of course, and community spirit, yes, of course. It definitely plays a role when everybody's wearing the same thing and has the same logo on it. It definitely plays an effect. Okay, I think that's about it to say for pro number 4. So here's con number 4, broken down by Arya.
So con number 4 says school uniforms do not improve attendance, academic preparedness, or exam results. So basically it's another study administered where So con number 4 is basically based off of a study, which the study demonstrated that adding in uniforms had no positive effect. It didn't make things get worse, it just didn't help. Again, as Sahith said, a flaw with this is they measured the data like really recent after they administered the thing. They didn't wait a couple of years. I think there also has to be some other underlying causes for this no improvement because having uniforms goes back to having conformity, which goes back to having better priorities in each student. So I think there must be something wrong with like the students in general.
Yeah, there's something just terribly wrong about the school uniforms were not made to improve attendance, academic preparedness, or exam results. How is it supposed to improve that stuff? It has no correlation with those things. Really, the only thing it correlates with is community spirit, feeling less left out, and getting rid of social classes, or rather, if you have a rich and a poor person, they're going to, in this case student, they're going to wear the same clothes so that one is not seen less wealthy than the other. It really evens out the playing ground, if you will put it like that.
Yeah, so like adding on to what Sahid said, sorry. So there are kids in his class. There are kids in his class live in mansions, and others live in lower income housing. So, and there's of course in between. And the thing is, you can't really distinguish between these kids who may live in like some shack in Detroit or some kid that may live in some bigger house in a nicer suburb or something. And you can't really tell them apart because when they come to school, they're all in the same uniform and they're all there to just study. It doesn't matter if your parents spending their entire salary on sending you to school or that's nothing to you and your parents are really rich. They're all the same. Whereas at a public school like where I go to, it is really obvious who has money and who doesn't. I mean, there's some kids in my school who might as well just come like without clothes on. It's just rags. And then there's other kids at my school who like have, like a bunch of technology and stuff. And like Apple Watches, like all decked out in between. So I think uniforms take away a lot of this like almost caste system that may be formed. So now we're going on to pro number 5. Sorry. School uniforms may improve attendance and discipline. Okay, well, first of all, this website is horrible. I mean, wasn't the last con just saying how it doesn't improve attendance?
I think what they're trying to prove is it may.
Say that again?
I think what they're trying to say that it may. Why even put that there if you're saying previously that it does not? So, yeah, I don't know. I think just this.
Yeah, okay, well, we'll just go with this. So, again, I can see how this would work. I don't think this is a main reason for uniforms. So, don't get me wrong, I'm all pro uniforms, but I don't think this is the main reason of designing uniforms. I think the main reason that uniforms were implemented in schools was to take away bias and introduce conformity and kill segregation. Um, so let's just dive deep into this pro anyway, because we're looking at it, we might as well. So a study at Houston. What is with Texas and studies? So Houston, it said that basically, it's self-evident. Introducing uniforms may increase attendance, and I can see how this would work because if you implement uniforms, that could take away some of the bullying, and taking away bullying means that there's more attendance because people who don't get bullied tend to not show up. So yeah, so I can see how that would work. So now we're going on to con number 5.
Yeah, I'll take that.
Sahi's doing this one.
Con number five. The key findings used to treat the benefits of uniforms are questionable. Okay, let me just read the description of it. The oft-quoted improvements to school safety and student behavior in the Long Beach, California Unified School District from 1993 to 1995 may not have resulted from the introduction of school uniforms. The study in which the findings were published cautioned that it is not, quote, it is not clear that these results are entirely attributable to the uniform policy, end quote, and suggests that the introduction of new school security measures made at the same time may have been partly responsible. So basically what that's saying is the thought effects that school uniform had on the school were truly not because of the school uniform. So this just seems to list a very specific school, and I don't think it shows the general trend of school uniforms. And again, they're measuring it from such short distances of time. So you're not going to see the full effect of the implementation until several years later. Okay, now we'll go on to pro number 6. Uniform policies save valuable class time because they are easier to enforce than a standard dress code. I actually partly agree with this and partly don't, because even if you have a uniform policy, you're still going to have to address dress code because, for example, in my school, we do have a uniform policy, as Arya said. However, we have to tuck in our shirt or wear certain color of pants, khaki in this case, and certain socks and certain color of shoes, and a blazer or a varsity jacket. And a lot of kids still don't follow these rules, and they were punished in the way of getting a dress code. And to be specific, 3 dress codes is a detention. And 3 detentions, I believe. Actually, I'm not sure. Sorry about that. There was a little static. Yeah, sorry about that. Okay, we're back. So yeah, they still get punished if they're not in the proper uniform dress code, with 3 dress codes equals 1 detention. And a certain amount of detentions lead to some kind of suspension. I'm not sure exactly the number. But anyways, that's just for my specific school. Anyway, so yeah, I still think it's obviously easier to, enforce. Like, there's less enforcement if you have a uniform. However, there is still some. Yeah, so I'm just seeing if it says completely erratic because they're easier to enforce. So I guess it's not saying exactly that it makes it completely eradicates it. Let's just say it does. So yeah, this is why I disagree, because there is still some dress code that needs to be enforced when you have uniform, but it is less than when you have no uniform. Because if you have no uniform, you have to basically take a look at every single student and decide whether or not their attire is in dress code or not. So it definitely reduces the amount of time, valuable class time, as this website puts it, but I think it still lingers there. Yeah, and now Arya will be doing con 6.
So the next con 6, is absolute nonsense. I'll just read you the con. School uniforms emphasize the socioeconomic divisions they are supposed to eliminate. It's basically saying wearing something that everyone else is wearing is going to cause you to get bullied more than wearing rags because there's no school code. I'll just read what they're even saying first, because this just is disgusting. Anyway, it says that, let's say we have one rich student who, again, may be living in some rich part of town. Their parents can afford them to go to school easily. And we have another student who is maybe lower income, and their parents really have to grind out, like maybe work double shifts or something just to send their kids to this good education. Let's also say that the school that they go to obviously has a dress code. This con is saying that although the two students both come in the same uniform, the poor one is still going to get bullied because his uniform is wrinkly and maybe is not the same brand as the other rich kid's uniform. I think this is complete nonsense, because if we shift this to a public school environment, the rich guy comes in and say a dress shirt, nice pants, and an Apple Watch or whatever, a Rolex. In a public school environment, the poor kid would come in literal rags, like a potato sack. If you're telling me someone's going to get bullied more for wearing a wrinkly uniform than wearing like a potato sack, then you're out of your mind. I don't know what else to say to you. It also says that racial divisions are emphasized with uniforms. I don't know where they got that conclusion, because that's just, how can...
Okay.
Sorry, we're back. So, I don't see where you could make that conclusion. How does uniforms cause racial division? Just how? How is a black person any different? How is a black person in a uniform any different from a black person in regular clothes? I just don't get it. If you're, I really don't. If anything, uniforms would encourage less racial divisions, because no matter their race, you wear the same thing. But I don't know. Again, this is total nonsense. I don't know what this is. Anyway, let's go on to Pro 7. If you're not, it's understandable if you may be thinking this episode's a little funky. It is. This website is just horrible. Anyway, Pro number 7. School uniforms prevent the display of gang colors and insignia. I definitely agree with this. It's not... Okay, whoever wrote this website has the wrong idea about public schools. It's not some hoodlum. There aren't gang signs. There aren't, like, rival gangs, like human trafficking in public schools. It's just a regular school. But anyway, I mean, obviously I agree. If some public school at that point isn't even a school, but I feel like, yeah, if some schools out there maybe have, like, rival gangs and uniforms, like, want peace and everyone joins the same gang, unless they're talking about gangs as, okay, this study was done in Florida, I'm not surprised. It's just really getting repetitive, but we'll go on to the next one.
Okay, con number 7. Students oppose school uniforms. Of course they do. They oppose homework also. Does that mean you just get rid of homework? I mean, this makes no sense. Of course they're going to oppose school uniform. They have to suck it up and live with it, and eventually it'll actually help them. Okay, let's just quickly read what they say. Enrollment at Washington High School in South Bend, Indiana has declined 43% since the introduction of school uniforms in 2006. And a 2017 survey found that 82% of the current students oppose uniforms. A peer-reviewed student study by researchers at the University of Nevada at Reno found that 90% of 7th and 8th graders opposed to do not like wearing uniforms. Okay, that's pretty much half of what they said here. But, okay, we're not going to have a decline of students if most, if not all, schools have a uniform, which we're quite advocating for. So, number one is that. Second of all, and also with number one, that's what homework is. Every school gives you homework, and a lot of kids don't like homework, and it's very understandable. But they put up with it. They still push through it, and in the long run, it's way more helpful for them and better. So yeah, okay, so what if they oppose it? This is getting kind of repetitive. It's like homework. A lot of kids oppose homework, but they still do it. They still put up with it, and in the long term, it is better for them. Pro number 8, school uniforms make getting ready easier for school, which can improve punctuality. Yeah, I agree with this, because this goes back again. If you have a student who's being bullied because of what he wears to school, whether that may be because of what he actually wears or because what he wears is a reflection of his socioeconomic status, that child or that student is going to wake up every morning and wonder, what should I wear so that I'm not bullied? That's just going to waste a lot of time. And if you really want to dig deep, if you're going to waste 30 minutes deciding what you're going to wear, let's say instead you just put on a regular uniform, which takes 2 minutes, get to school, save 28 minutes in the process. You can study for 28 more minutes and make use of 28 more minutes rather than deciding what to wear to school so that you don't get bullied. So yeah, I strongly agree with that point. Okay, Aria's going to break down Con 8.
This is just off topic, like completely off topic. Have you seen the movie Pursuit of Happiness?
I have not yet.
Oh, okay. So, nothing. I was just gonna ask you if you thought he was a better businessman than Wolf of Wall Street. But anyway, getting into con number 8, uniforms may have a detrimental effect on students' self-image. I have a very controversial stance on this. I believe bullying can be good in some cases. And so you'll see how this relates to this later. So it's basically saying, if let's say I'm like a fatter kid. I'm not, by the way. I'm not fat. But let's just say I am a fatter kid, right? If I go to a public school, this is what the article or the con is saying. If I go to a public school, I can wear a plus size T-shirt or XXXXXL or whatever, however fat I am. Wear a T-shirt that is large on me, so no one can see my body figure, I guess. But I mean, I was saying.
Or another example, they could wear all black clothes so they look skinnier. True.
But again, this won't work because jawline never lies. So if you have a double chin, you're fat. But anyway, so you know what? Forget I said that. I don't know why I said that. Anyway, so this article is saying because private schools or whatever schools enforce uniforms, these kids of different body shapes and stuff, they can't choose what they wear, and so a uniform might make them look fat. Honestly, suck it up. If you get bullied for that, it's gonna make you nothing but better, because people who commit suicide get bullied more than just body image. It's about personal things. If you get bullied for body image, 9 out of 10 times, 9 out of 10 kids are gonna work to be better. And in the long run, it's going to be better. Like Sahi said, in the long run, homework is going to be good. In the long run, this bullying is really going to help you become a better person. And you're going to learn how the world is. Because facts don't care about your feelings. The world doesn't care about your feelings. You're going to get better with bullying.
I'm not sure how much I agree on the bullying, but we can discuss that a little later. But if you read into the description of this con, it says Child and Teen Development Specialist Robin Silverman told NBC News today that students, especially girls, tend to compare how each other look in their uniforms. Quote, as a body image expert, I hear from students all the time that they feel it allows for a lot of comparison. So if you have a body that's a plus-size body, which you were mentioning, a curvier body, a very tall body, and a very short body, those girls often feel that they don't look their best. Yeah, so what is your response to that? I have a response, but I want to see if we kind of agree on this, because let me actually just address the bullying thing. I think in some cases, yes, bullying is good, especially if the child who's being bullied has a good mindset and uses that bullying to motivate themselves, such as if they're overweight and they're being bullied for being overweight, they use that bullying as motivation to go to the gym, or rather to work out and to lose weight. So I think in some cases it can be, in other cases it cannot be. For example, you are a homosexual and people are making fun of you. This is not funny, and people are making fun of you. So there, you can obviously ignore it, but it also comes down to the individual's mental strength, and that case of bullying is not good. And that's a whole nother discussion, but that's my basic premise of that argument. So yeah, again, what is your response to the Robin Silverman that told NBC about a girl's body?
Well, just going back to the bullying thing, I wasn't talking about your sexuality. I was just talking about if you're fat or skinny. So I don't see how homosexuality would have a role in that. But again, you said it's another topic. Anyway, Robert Silverman, girls' bodies. So honestly, I think there's like, I can't speak on behalf of girls because, I'm not a girl, but like, of course, everyone is going to feel a little insecure at first if you don't have a body you're proud of, but I just think that's going to better you. And if people are making fun of you or your friends are talking behind your back, I think that it's like a good way to like root out who is actually your friend. And so I think Silverman, he's only giving like half the discussion of their they feel it allows space for comparison, but I feel like he's letting out what may have resulted from that, like how much the girls may have bettered themselves and such.
Okay, I have two things. I'm sticking on this con for a second. Two things wrong with this. I guess you could call it analysis. About the girl's body and how they feel about their self-image. One from a uniform perspective, and the other from a personal mental strength perspective. Okay, let's start with the uniform perspective. If anything, uniforms, rather than being a detrimental effect on students, in this case girls' self-image, I think it actually helps their self-image. Of course, I can't speak on behalf of girls, but I think this makes general sense. And I think this goes for a male too, especially if you go for weight, like skinny or fat. But if there's not going to be a uniform, every person can wear what they want, and what they wear may, let's say, okay, let's go back to poverty and or poor and rich, rather. Sorry. If a rich girl in this case, has a good attire, and a poor person has a bad attire, and they come to school in that good and bad attire, of course that's going to have a way more detrimental effect on students' self-image than if you both have the same exact uniform. I mean, come on. And then Ari has to say something.
So in your school, do you see the students that come from like a poverty area or a lower income area being bullied by the ones that don't, like, come from a higher income area?
To be honest, you cannot tell who is from a high and who's from a low income area, especially when they're wearing uniform. It is practically impossible. I mean, some cases, of course, yes, if they have greasy hair, they have torn pants, okay, but that's very rare case, because generally it is almost impossible to tell if someone comes from a poor or rich socioeconomic background. So that answers your question. And to my other point of mental strength. Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, so you hear a lot of, in the media these days, you hear a lot of people saying, don't tell fat people to lose weight. or be confident of who you are. Okay? And then here it says on the con, it detrimental effect on their self-image. Well, then to you I say, be confident of who you are, okay? Don't come to me and say it's a detrimental effect on your self-image, and then go on later and say love who you are, don't care what everybody else says about you. I agree with the second thing, but what you're saying in those two things are completely contradictory. So yeah, that's my mental strength, like if you will call it that, point. So I believe. Do you have something to say about that?
Yes. And adding on to that, if people who are maybe bigger body, they have a stigma around people who use the word fat as a negative thing. So for those people, if I'm just like confused, if you talk about, if you shame people for, let me put it this way. If you get angry at people for using fat as something to put you down, actually, let me put it this way. If body positivity is everything, then how is being fat any different from being called skinny? Like, if I go call a skinny kid skinny, how is that any different from calling a fat kid fat? Like, what? A skinny person won't take offense from being called skinny unless you repeatedly make fun of them. But if you call a fat person fat once, they will. So why is there the stigma around fat? This is a whole different topic, but that's just what I had to say. I'm kind of confused on the topic, but that's for another time. So, am I going now, or?
I have something to say
Okay.
anyway. I think because fat, there's generally a negative connotation. I guess you're asking why is there a negative connotation? Because I think that's what modern day people are trying to get rid of, is that don't care what other people say about your physique or anything about you, which in some degree I agree with, in other degrees I do not at all. Sorry, just some static. So I think it is because generally overweight people aren't as, I guess you could put, good looking or stereotypically
Sexy.
sexy as lower as a regular weighted person. Jesus, some static. Okay, but I think that's generally why there is a negative, what would you say, a negative stigma. So yeah, you were gonna go into pro number, what was it, 9? Here you go.
So, this is a very obvious one. School uniforms can save parents money. This is really obvious because, kids are gonna want to have like 20,000 different pairs of clothes, but um, at a school that doesn't enforce uniforms, because they want to change it up. I guess, I don't know, because it's their personality for some people. But at a school that enforces uniforms, at most you only need 5 pairs of uniforms, because one every day. If you really need to, parents could just buy one uniform and wash it every day. I don't know. I don't know if I can kind of agree with this because it's not like a kid is just gonna stop wanting other clothes for other reasons just because they have uniforms that may be outside of school. So I'm gonna ask Sahi. Do you think that? I mean, obviously you have other clothes, but do you think if you went to school without a uniform, you would have more clothes than you do now?
Yeah, I think so, because I would try getting more variety of clothes so I can go to school in different clothes every other day. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And so yeah, they did some survey that supported that, and so yeah. So let's go to con number 9. I'm gonna be taking this one because Sahi thinks he's taking it, but he did the last one, so I don't know what he's doing. Anyway, so con number 9 focuses on uniforms, taking attention away from finding genuine solutions to problems in education. I mean, who is coming up with these cons? They're really, really reaching, because now this is going on to a completely different topic. It's basically saying that because uniforms are there, people get distracted from other issues. How is that like the fault of uniforms? How is that? How? Private schools and public schools both get shot up. How does it make a difference? I mean, I really don't know what to say to this. It's disgraceful. I'm not even going to read what it says, but if you have anything to say on it, Sahi, you can go ahead. Otherwise, you can just move on to pro number 10.
Yeah, I don't see the correlation of how. And first of all, focusing on uniforms, there's less focus on uniforms than there is on focus on uniforms where there is no uniform. So, it doesn't make sense. Okay, pro number 10. Most parents and educators support mandatory school uniforms. It looks like they did a survey here and that proved it, so that's pretty self-evident. I don't think we need to expand on that idea, but yes, okay. Most parents and educators support it, so that's better, I guess. Con number 10. The push for school uniforms is driven by commercial interests rather than educational ones. Let's just read that again. The push for school uniforms is driven by commercial interests. I get it. So basically, every time you wear a uniform, there is a logo on it, obviously. And what this con is trying to say is that this logo, rather than educational uses of it, is a commercial use. And what they mean by that is, with that logo on, every time a student goes out of school with that uniform on, other people are going to see that uniform, and it's more like a business kind of logo, like, oh, this school goes there, that it looks quite nice, they have a uniform, so I'm going to go to that school because I like the uniform. And on the uniform you have the little patch that says whatever private or whatever school it is, so it's kind of advertising for itself. I do agree with that, but not rather than. I think that's the wrong. In addition to is the right thing. So I think that pretty much speaks for itself because it is also providing educational interest. So pro number 11, I think we're almost done here, but Arya's going to take this one.
So pro number 11 says a student's legal right to free expression remains intact even with mandatory school uniforms. I totally agree with this. As we've said, like,
I'd just like to quickly state this completely goes against con number 1. It's almost as if this website wants you to forget con number 1 while you read pro 11. I mean, terrible.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how it's just contradicting itself so badly, but anyway, as we've said multiple times, there is more to you than what you just wear. Doesn't matter if you're all wearing the same thing. Everyone is different because of your personality. If you make your personality what you wear, then you're a loser. There's no other way to put it. So you need to work on you. But as we've said so many times, there's just making people wear something does not take away any right. Con number 11, parents should be free to choose their children's clothes without government interference. Oh my goodness. I don't even... Would you rather have your son bullied to the point of suicide? Or would you rather have him just suck it up and wear a uniform? If you care so much about what your kid wears, how much of a loser are you? I can understand to a certain extent what students care about what they wear. Why would the parent care so much to the point where they want to intervene with the school's policies just to let their kids wear a tank top? That doesn't matter. You want your kid to learn at school. That's why they go to school. Learning is best possible when there's conformity. Conformity is achieved when there's uniforms. I have nothing else to say on that. We'll go to pro number 12 with Sahi.
Pro number 12, students dressed in uniform are better perceived by teachers and peers. I guess this comes back to the basics of... Actually, let me just read what they say. In 1994, a peer-reviewed study found that students in uniform were perceived by teachers and fellow students as being more academically proficient than students in regular clothes. The study also found that students in uniform perceived by peers and teachers as having higher academic potential and perceived. Okay, this is more psychological. I'm sure it works, but if everybody's wearing the same uniform, then yeah, it comes down again to psychological look on things, because I guess dressing in classy clothes rather than some baggy, or as Ari likes to say, raggy potato sack, you seem more intellectual. So I guess that kind of speaks for itself. Okay, con number 12. School uniforms in public schools undermine the promise of free education by imposing an extra expense on families.
Isn't it going against what? This is going completely against what it said pro number 8 or 9. I mean, a few pros ago they're saying school uniforms save expenses. Now it's saying it imposes an extra expense on families. I don't get it. Okay, I really don't get it. This website's just disgustingly bad, but I'll let Sahi say it.
Actually, I'm starting to think it's not so much the website, but the people that the cons that have been formed by the general people. I mean, they're so limited. And I mean, I have to also say some of the pros are limited as well. But okay, we're just going to move to pro number 13, which is the final pro, and then we'll do con number 13, which is the final con. So Ariana's the pro or con?
I'll do the con.
Okay, I'll do the pro. Pro 13, students can express their individuality in school uniforms by introducing variations in addressing. Okay, this literally just goes against the, the first or second con. Introducing variations and adding accessories. Okay, the description of junior high school student Amelia Jimenez wrote in her op-ed for the Pennsylvania Patriot News website that, contrary to popular belief, uniforms do not stop students from being themselves. Uniforms do not silence voices. Students can wear a variety of expressive items, such as buttons or jewelry. Okay, to some extent, I agree with this, but once you start moving away from the general premise of uniforms, which is kind of what's going on here with adding accessories, it gets kind of dangerous. I mean, then you can start saying, okay, well, maybe you wear a uniform top but a different bottom. Maybe you wear a uniform, then it goes to maybe you wear a uniform blazer and a varsity jacket, but not uniform shirt and bottom. I mean, okay, I somehow agree with this, but again, the more you move away from the general premise of a uniform, I can see how buttons and jewelry are fine, but again, I'll say it again, the more you move away, the more dangerous, and it's more like a slippery slope. Okay, we'll go to final con number 13.
So, con number 13. Actually, just go back. So, at your school, do you see people exercising what is said in pro number 13, like injecting their own style into things?
Yes, I do, but I don't know how much of it is intentional to get out of the uniform structure of things. I think they do it because, well, if you take jewelry, buttons, I don't see any buttons, but jewelry, yes, of course, and again, I don't see how that's directly going against uniform, but yes, I do see it.
Okay, finally, con number 13. School uniforms may delay the transition into adulthood.
That's a pretty good one, actually.
Well, I don't agree. I think this, no.
Okay, break it down.
There's many ways to attack this. The first way is, one could argue, at a workplace, although there's no strict uniform, one still has to dress decent to a dress code, a strict dress code. Not one that simply says, oh, shorts have to be below the knees. No, it's business casual, at least business casual, even business formal. So wearing this is almost reversed, because getting used to a uniform, getting used to wearing these decent clothes to school can get you ready for this. And secondly, fine, let's say you work at some place where there's really no uniform at all. You can wear whatever you please. Someone that wears a uniform when they go to school, it's not like there's some special need. They're not gonna have some disadvantage over just picking clothes than another person. And so what if they decide to wear a uniform to work which doesn't require a uniform? It's not like wearing a uniform to let's put it this way. Wearing a uniform to a public school won't get you dress coded. You can wear, that just could be your style. Honestly, from your heart, Sahi, do you think you're gonna have trouble adapting to real world situations because you wear a uniform at school? Do you think you're gonna have trouble picking out your own clothes?
No, because I have a life outside of school where I wear my own clothes. So this question actually, now that I think of it, just is absolute garbage.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone that goes to a school that has a uniform changes when they have to do sports, go home. They don't sleep in their uniform. They socialize, they have lives, unless you're a total loser. I don't know. Even them, they're gonna be able to adapt. So I really don't get what they're saying. Honestly, I would say out of these 13 pros and 13 cons, I would say maybe, oh man, there's a few good pros. I think the first pro is actually kind of a reach with the crime. I think the main basis of the pros is that uniforms take away bullying and discrimination because they they project conformity onto students, which takes away segregation. Um, do you see an overarching theme for the cons?
Um, I think overarching theme is, I mean, the cons are kind of scattered all over. I mean, so are the pros, but not as badly. But the cons are kind of scattered all over the place, with like individuality, then violent attacks, then saving money. I mean, I guess you could put the overarching theme as personal choice and personal freedoms, which, again, as we explained, kind of contradict each other. So I think to close this episode off, we'll just briefly recap on all the reasons why uniform should be implemented into most, if not all, school systems. One, it encourages unity and less social segregation, and therefore less socioeconomic segregation, and therefore the school can be more of a community, and students are more focused on education rather than what am I going to wear to a school tomorrow because I got bullied yesterday, or rather today, if you really want to think about it that way. But I think, do you want to add anything to that? I mean, I think that just pretty much sums it up.
Yeah, that pretty much sums it up.
All right, well, thank you for listening to this episode, and we hope you join us next time.
Report